Lawyers of Reddit, what was your "oh crud" moment in court? Remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below if you enjoy these stories. Now, let's get started. Sat on a personal injury case where the plaintiff broke their leg in an accident and had a doctor on the stand as an expert. The woman's lawyer begins questioning the doctor about their experience with leg injuries. He was a well-known orthopedic surgeon in the area. She asks if he's ever created a tibula fracture. The leg bones are the tibia and the fibula, to which he only answers no. And then he starts grilling him with questions about the tibula. About 6 to 7 questions in, she asks, "How did you get a medical license and have been able to practice medicine this long if you've never treated a tibula fracture?" And then begins a small rant about going after his credentials and those that gave it to him, to which he simply responds, "There is no bone named the tibula." The lawyer became beet red, and everyone in their room tried their best to keep from laughing, including the judge. I was representing a plaintiff in a hit-and-run case. Plaintiff is testifying and is, despite me preparing them for several hours the previous day, an absolutely terrible witness for her own case. Like she couldn't even identify the street she was crossing when she was hit by the car. It was a major highway. We had gone through the sequence of events countless times the day before the hearing. The oh shit moment came during cross-examination. Defense counsel pulls up a picture of my client dressed up and ready to hit the club, which was posted to Facebook the day after the alleged accident. I, thinking quickly, object because the timestamp refers to when it was posted, not when it was taken. Defense counsel showed the picture to my client and asked her when the picture was taken. Sure enough, they say it was taken the day after the accident, when she was supposedly in unbearable pain. Oh, shiz. When I was in college, I was a bailiff. There's a guy on trial for murder. The first witness testified that she saw the defendant shoot the victim. Second witness states the same. Police officer testimony is that he arrived at the scene and the defendant was holding the gun. Coroner testimony is that the first bullet hit the victim in the arm, the second bullet hit the victim in the torso, and the third bullet hit the victim in the heart, which was the fatal shot. Defendant yells out, "See, that proves I didn't kill him. I only shot the motherfricker twice." Dumbass. I was a baby lawyer in my first year representing the 19-year-old child of some rich people in San Mateo County, California. My client had gone on a bit of a shoplifting spree, and we were cleaning out all our cases up with a global plea, meaning we handled them all at once. Being new, I filled out the plea form wrong, swapping the count she was charged with for the count she was pleading to. It's an easy mistake to make. Every court has their own unique form, and I was unfamiliar with San Mateo's. The judge calls my line, starts reading off the plea form, notices the mistake, and starts screaming at the top of the lungs. "Counsel, what is this? What is this? Is this your first day on the job? This is a court of law, and we do not accept mistakes. Fill this plea form out correctly, or I'll have you taken into custody for contempt." I did not expect a reaction like that. My client, who had clearly just taken a huge bong rip at 8 a.m., and who was wearing an all-pink velvet tracksuit, was looking at me like I was the biggest idiot in the world. I corrected the plea form, and the judge made me wait until the very end of the calendar to take my plea. Afterward, he called me up to the bench. In private, he told me, "Sorry to ream you like that. Everyone messes the plea form up, so I always pick the youngest lawyer to yell at. The older guys will grumble and complain, but if you notice, they all fix their own forms, and we didn't have any more problems. It keeps the calendar running smooth." "Where did you go to law school?" After that, he invited me into his office for coffee and gave me some really good life and work advice. Turns out he likes talking to new lawyers. Well, that's nice. Represented a woman charged with multiple very serious felonies. She insisted in the months before the offense she'd been seriously dating one of the detectives who ultimately wound up investigating and testifying in her case. For a variety of reasons, I trusted this client and believed her, even though the detective never disclosed the relationship in his report. So during his testimony, I asked, "Detective Smith, you had a romantic relationship with Miss Defendant, correct?" He goes, "What? No!" and is very visibly offended. The judge looks at me like I've lost my mind. The Commonwealth attorney audibly says, "What?" And I'm freaking out because a large part of my cross-argument was focused on the bias formed by the prior relationship, and now I've got nothing and lost all credibility. I try again. "Detective Smith, you've had a sexual relationship with Miss Defendant." As the Commonwealth tries to object, and the judge starts to scold me, the detective goes, "Oh yeah, we've had naughties, it just wasn't very, romantic." Oh my god. And just so people know, the detective was not disqualified. His testimony was not thrown out. Impeachment, no matter how good, doesn't result in you getting to throw out a witness's testimony entirely. By the way, it wasn't really the naughties that was the issue. It was that he didn't disclose it to anyone, and his repeated insistence under questioning that he didn't disclose it because it was irrelevant. Like, Watergate, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up that gets you. But I don't get to demand the judge throw out the testimony or the charge just because the cop failed to disclose a prior relationship with the defendant. I just get to point it out, argue it in closing, and hope the jury also sees the relevance. Not a lawyer, but I had a big crud moment. I was in court for driving while suspended in a county, and in front of a judge we were both notorious for putting people who did that in jail. My license wasn't supposed to be suspended. A pencil pusher forgot to press a button or something, and it never got unsuspended after the time was up. I had proof of this, but I was still really nervous. The guy who went up to the judge before me walked to the table where we were supposed to stand, sat down, and put his feet up on the table. The judge asked him what he was doing, and he gave a flippant answer, and basically told the judge to get fricked. This seriously angered the judge. The judge went off on this guy and gave everything right back to him, angering him off more and more. The judge ended up jailing him for contempt and had the bailiff cuff the guy and put him in a chair off to the side to await the marshals who would transport him to jail. My name gets called. The judge is looking at me like I'm fresh meat, and he is a great white shark. I'm already thinking to myself, okay, if this judge puts you in jail, run over and beat the crud out of the guy that angered the judge. He's why you're going to jail. The judge looks down at the paperwork and back at me and says, "You're Mr. Insert Last Name here?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Yeah, we're talking about you earlier. I'm going to void your arrest and dismiss the case. Your license was supposed to be valid and you shouldn't be here." I let out a huge sigh. The judge asked me if I was okay, and I said I had been a bit worried, especially given the guy that was right before me online. The judge said, "Don't worry about him. He won't be seeing anything that isn't behind bars for about 90 days. And I laughed. I watched a hearing wherein the defendant said, I did stab her, but it was a gentle stabbing." Not a lawyer, but a shared oh crud moment with one. I hit something in the road and had a tire blow out while driving home from MEPS. I hit a concrete divider and wound up rolling my car. No injuries and no other vehicles involved. I received a reckless driving ticket that the officer told me was just procedure and not to be concerned with. Fast forward a month and I'm in court with my lawyer, who plans on pointing out that this ticket could prevent my hardship enlistment. He's not expecting it to take more than a minute because the issuing officer and prosecutor are on board. Cue group crud moment. I'm fourth on the docket and the judge has just handed out maximum sentences for all 3 prior defendants. People are getting 6 to 12 months, having licenses revoked for little stuff. The prosecutor gets screamed at the instant he opens his mouth. The police officer is told to shut up while answering a question the judge asked, and my lawyer is told he's about to be held in contempt. I'm starting to think I'm gonna get 3 squares and a cot, just not where I planned on getting them. The judge told me to step forward while shuffling my case paperwork, and my lawyer just gave me a look that said, "I am so sorry." The case is dismissed in the interest of justice, and if any more idiots waste his time with nonsense like this again, everyone is spending the night in county. That judge must be... must have many anger issues, oh god. Medical malpractice defense lawyer here, representing hospitals and doctors. This was not my oh crud moment, but the plaintiff's oh crud moment. For context, usually at trial, both plaintiff and defendant will have an expert physician testify as to their opinion whether the doctor and hospital performed everything correctly. I thoroughly researched the plaintiff's expert, who was an OBGYN baby delivery, and found out he had been suspended a number of times for his own botched deliveries and giving incorrect medical testimony to help plaintiff's cases. During the actual day of trial, it turns out he was not licensed to practice medicine independently without supervision from another physician, and he was 1 year into his 3-year suspension. Plaintiff's lawyers had no idea about their own expert's background, and they just sat there with a blank look on their face. Needless to say, during cross-examination, we destroyed his credibility and won at trial. I've had a couple. Best one was when I was at a youth prosecutor defense attorney in teen court. The youth defendant was on trial for assault. I asked him what happened, and he said, "My friends told me I wouldn't beat up the Easter Bunny at the mall, so I did." The only time I could not control my laughter in court. Another, I was watching a detention hearing in federal court. The only issue is whether the defendant will get to go home until trial. This was an appeal of the court's previous decision that the defendant be held until trial. The third witness was an FBI agent, which, needless to say, is not normal at a detention hearing. The FBI agent testified that some other attorney, not the one representing the defendant at the hearing, had been taking letters from the defendant and sending them to different people for the defendant. Those letters were contracts to have the prosecuting attorney offed. The representing attorney withdrew and the defendant was not released pending trial. Once more, I was in traffic court, one time, and a sovereign citizen who was acting pretty hostile began approaching the judge's bench. He was arrested at gunpoint, which was pretty wild considering there were 150 or so people in the courtroom. Last one, my first ever civil trial, I was representing the plaintiff, who wanted to evict the defendant from her property for non-payment of rent. After presenting my case, the judge asked the defendant to present his evidence. The defendant said, "Huh?" The judge said, "Now is your turn to present your case." The defendant said, "I don't understand." The judge leans over the bench and asks, "Why are you here?" The defendant said, "Oh, yeah, right." The defendant went on a 30-minute tangent about all sorts of things, like how he only parks his car so he can see where he's going, when he pulls out because he was taught that when in the military. I could have objected, but the more he talked, the more the judge disliked him. After 30 minutes, the judge finally asked, "And about the rent?" The defendant says, "Oh yeah, I'm not trying to debate that I didn't pay it." And that's how I won my first civil trial. I was prosecuting a contempt action in family court. something that basically never works, and everyone in the courtroom could tell I was winning. The other side was unprepared out of arrogance, and I was basically ripping this guy to shreds on cross-examination, which his lawyer didn't even think would happen because he expected the case to be dismissed. At the end of the trial, the judge ruled for me and stated that she found the defendant's testimony to be untrustworthy. I was shocked at winning a contempt trial to begin with, but then this exchange happened. The defendant's attorney: Your Honor, now that you have found my client's testimony to be untrustworthy, I am requesting a continuance in order to prepare further witnesses. This concept is shocking in of itself, because to even think you can bring more witnesses after you rest your case is laughable. And the judge said, You had your shot and you missed, counsel. The defendant's attorney: Your Honor, there is no way I could have anticipated that you find my client's testimony untrustworthy, and as such, I didn't have the opportunity to prepare other witnesses in support of his position. And the judge said, That may be an argument for your carrier, counsel, but it holds no water with me. See you this afternoon for sentencing. For those who didn't pick up on it, the judge basically told the lawyer, on the record in front of his client, that she expects him to get sued for malpractice because he screwed up so royally. That shit was mind-blowing on multiple levels. That's the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. Maybe share the video around so more people see it, because goodness knows YouTube's not sharing this with anybody. Anyway, I'll see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.